Hi everybody, let me know if the sound quality is okay. It should be fine, but if it's not, let me know. Alright, so today's topic, we're going to be talking about appearances. So, we're going to be talking about lots of different ways to describe things and people. This is a very large topic, so we can't cover everything, but we'll cover probably the most common parts. Okay, so I'm going to show you one of the most beautiful words. We're talking about beautiful. Now, beautiful is a very good word. It can be used for almost everything. Unfortunately, it's a very low-level word. So instead you want to use something else. You don't want to just use beautiful. So when we're talking about people, we don't use beautiful all the time. We can use gorgeous. Gorgeous is a really good word. We also use good-looking. We can even say stunning. So if we want to talk about people, especially women, generally will use these words. Now, if we talk about men, we usually don't use the word beautiful or gorgeous. If you're a man and you're talking about another man and use the word gorgeous, it sounds a little bit gay. So you can use it, it's correct, but maybe the meaning is a little bit different. Usually for men, we'll use the word handsome. So that's probably the best word that you can use, regardless of the situation. Handsome always works, so you can use handsome for men. For women, you don't call them handsome, you can use these other words. Probably the most common one is good-looking. You can call a good-looking guy or a good-looking girl, that's also true. Okay, now, another very common word that we use to describe people is attractive. Now this word is perfectly fine. However, you do have to keep in mind, if you use the word attractive, it has a lot of different meanings. Now, if you're talking about men or women and you say they're attractive, that's perfectly fine. But if you're talking about things, if you're saying, I don't know if I want to read this book or the other book, they both seem quite attractive to me, then you can use other words instead of attractive. You can use words like appealing or alluring. They all mean the same thing. So alluring may be a little bit more complicated. So I don't know if any of you like to go fishing. If you go fishing, then you may know where this word comes from. So, sorry, horrible picture time. When you go fishing, you have a fishing rod. At the end of the fishing rod, you will have usually something like a hook. And on the hook, you'll put something on it. So you put some worms, you'll put some food. On there, you're putting something called some bait. Bait. And that's to attract or lure fish to you. So actually this becomes a fishing lure. So that's why we have the word alluring. It also has this meaning as well. So you're trying to attract the fish so you can catch them with some food. So it is a fishing lure. So we have that word alluring. Some other words that you could use are magnetic. So if you know what a magnet is, it attracts metal. And so if something is magnetic, it means that it's going to be attractive. Sorry, I got the wires here are crazy. Okay, anyways, yes. So you can use these words instead of attractive if you're talking about things. For people, if we talk about people, sometimes we will say that people have a magnetic personality. So it means that their characteristics or their personality attracts a lot of people. So that's fine. If they have a magnetic personality, then we usually use an idiom as well. We will call them a people person. So a people person means they get along well with other people, they attract lots of people, you can call them people persons. If we're talking about things, remember you can also use this to talk about things. A very interesting word, I just said it, is interesting. Unfortunately, it's too common. So how can you describe things that are interesting? So I'm going to give you some words for interesting. So once again, this is a very common word, very low-level word. Instead, you should use something else. So one word you can use is riveting. Riveting has the same meaning as interesting. So if you find a movie is interesting, or you find someone is interesting, you can say that they are riveting. You can say that they are fascinating, enthralling, or engrossing. They all have roughly the same meaning as interesting. So unfortunately in English there are just so many different words to say the same thing. This is another example of that. So lots of words to talk about if someone or something is interesting. Don't use interesting all the time, too common. You can use these words instead. I'll give you a little bit of time to digest these words. Any questions? Please let me know. I know it's a lot of vocabulary. Unfortunately in English, this is just the way it is. There are so many words that can mean the same thing. I'll give you a few more moments to digest that language. Okay, fine. Let's talk about some more words then. Okay, now, if you're talking about people and they're a little bit, let's say they're fat. If they're quite fat, this is a very common word. Now, if you go overseas, I know a lot of people watching this video, they're from Hong Kong or Korea or something like that. So you don't meet a lot of people that are fat usually, because fat people, for whatever reason, they don't exist in Asia too much. If you go overseas though, if you go to the US or Australia, you'll notice that quite a few people are quite fat. So you're going to be using this word quite often. Instead, you can use these words: overweight, obese, chubby, and plump. There are actually additional words to mean fat. However, these are probably the best ones to use. Now, obviously, no matter what you say, this is going to be a negative term. So if you see somebody and you say that they're fat or overweight or obese, these are all negative. So there's no way to turn it into a good thing. I want to make this clear. These are all negative. So if you use these words, you'll probably hurt someone's feelings, which can be quite fun and entertaining, by the way. But I do want to just let you know that that is the case. Now, if you really want to say this in the politest way possible, then usually we use the word big boned. So I want to make this clear. It's not positive, it's just the least insulting. We would say that individuals are big boned. And some people are actually big boned. I've met some people in life, you probably have too, where they're not really fat, but they are quite large because they have large bones. So their physique is large. It doesn't mean that they're fat. It's just that they're large, and so they're big boned. So this is the least insulting way. If you want to say someone is fat, you can call them big boned. Just use a good word, physique. Physique just means their shape, the shape of their body. So physique's a high-level word. if you get a topic about exercise or about doing physical training or something like that, you can definitely say that, oh, well, you want to do these things to improve and boost your physique. P-H-Y, physique. Very good word. Now, on the opposite of this, on the opposite of people being big boned or overweight or obese, we have people that weigh very little or are quite skinny. So skinny is another word that you'll probably use a lot, especially if you're living in Vietnam or Korea or Hong Kong. This is a very common word. Most girls are extremely skinny. I've seen quite a few girls that are under 100 pounds or about 45 kilograms. So other words for skinny, you have thin, lean, slim. Now, if you say someone is bony, this is probably a little bit insulting. Not really, but it's not really positive. So these words are generally, from skinny, thin, lean, and slim, these vocabulary words are generally positive or neutral. Bony is a little bit negative. So that's the contrast. These words on the fat side are negative, and then this one is the least negative, so it's the least insulting. However, on this side, these ones are probably positive or neutral, but then this one is probably the least positive or the most insulting. Because bony means that you can see their bones. It means that they're too skinny generally. So some people, they don't, for whatever reason, it could be genetics, it could be their diet. You can literally see their bones. Like sometimes you can see their bones, like their rib cage. Then they're quite bony. That's probably a bad thing, right? Sometimes you can see it in their neck or in their hands. You can see all the bones popping out. That's probably a bad look. That's probably not attractive. That's probably not good looking. So this is negative usually. Okay, lots of vocab. Let's talk about the opposite of attractive or good looking. And then we're going to move on to some objects, and then we'll be done for the day. So, at the beginning of tonight's class, we talked about how you can be good looking, how you can be attractive, how you can be gorgeous or beautiful. Though, if you're on the other side, then what are you? Well, obviously, the low-level word is ugly. There are lots of other words for ugly. So, if you're talking about... Now, usually, people, we just call them ugly. If they're extremely ugly, like if they look like roadkill, so I need to explain what roadkill is. So, if you drive a car, sometimes you may drive on the highway, and if you drive really fast, sometimes an animal will rush out all of a sudden. You hit the animal's dead. We'll call that roadkill, and you'll see the guts everywhere and blood and bones, so we call that roadkill. So if someone looks so ugly, they look like roadkill, then ugly isn't a good enough or advanced enough term to use. We would use the word hideous. So hideous just means extremely ugly, unbelievably ugly, supremely ugly. Another good word is grotesque. Once again, it just means unbelievably ugly. So we've got hideous and we've got grotesque. So those two are probably the best words if you want to talk about ugly people. Now, if you're talking about situations, you can use other words. If you're talking about situations, we might say disgusting. We usually don't say people look disgusting. We usually don't say people are disgusting in the sense of ugly. Disgusting would be like a person is eating and they got food all over their face and they look really messy. then that would be, it's a kind of ugly, but we don't just mean their face, we mean the situation. So then we would use disgusting. We could also use repulsive. So earlier we talked about how people and things could be attractive. The opposite of attractive, so something that you can draw towards yourself if you're attractive, the opposite is repulsive. So repulsive means it pushes away. So if someone's extremely ugly or they do things that are horrible and it pushes people away, then you can say that it's repulsive. Now, you guys don't do anything like that, so I would never call you those terms. Can we use it on objects that are for hideous and grotesque? You can, yes. If you think the artwork is that ugly, you can say it's hideous or grotesque, definitely. Yes, you can. You can use these for anything. Good question. Okay, I'm going to give you a few idioms about people, and then we're going to move on to objects. So let's talk a bit about some idioms. So if you've been following my Instagram, I put out one yesterday, a beauty queen. So what's a beauty queen? A beauty queen just means a woman that is so good looking or attractive that they could win beauty competitions. So they are a beauty queen, okay? So it doesn't mean that they actually have. They might have won competitions. They may have never won one or may have never even been in a competition. But it still means that they're so attractive they could actually win one. So you can call them beauty queens. It's only for women, though. There are no beauty kings. We've got one about knockout. So this is a noun, so usually we say a knockout. So once again, it means someone who looks amazing, who looks unbelievably stunning and gorgeous. That person is a knockout. So I don't know if you listen to or watch boxing. You wouldn't really listen to boxing. You'd watch boxing. So a knockout is when there are two boxers. Sorry, horrible play acting. There are two boxers, and one boxer strikes the other boxer, and in one punch, the other boxer will fall down, and then they stay down. That's a knockout. That means that the guy won. So it's the same thing here. The person's so beautiful, you get knocked out in some sort of fashion, something like that. So if someone is unbelievably beautiful, you can call them a knockout. Don't judge a book by its cover. So, all this idiom is saying, if you've ever read a book, I'm sure you have read books. The point is that when you have the cover of a book, it may not necessarily tell you what's the how good or bad the book is. So maybe the book just looks like this. It is red. Now, the cover of the book does not tell you the contents of the book. It does not tell you if it's good, it does not tell you if it's bad. It may have a title, it may have an author, but it doesn't tell you if it's well written or poorly written. And so that's why we say you can't judge a book by its cover. So as an example, a lot of people may look at me. So if I'm in Hong Kong, or if I'm in South Korea, or if I'm in Japan, people will judge me because they will think I speak that language. So for example, if I go to Japan, people will judge me by my cover, by my appearance, and they will think I speak Japanese, but I don't. If I go to Vietnam, probably the same thing. People would assume that I speak Vietnamese, but I do not. So you cannot judge a book by its cover. So it's saying don't be prejudicial. Don't assume things. Is the knockout for both sexes? Yes. Once again, if a guy says another guy's a knockout, it's kind of gay. So usually guys don't use this language. Girls can use it for both sexes. It's generally okay. Yes, you can call you can call men knockouts. Yes. Good question. I'll give you one more idiom, then we'll move on to some of the items or things. The clothes make the man. So what does this mean? The clothes make the man just means that based on what you wear, it actually will control or dictate or influence who you are and how successful you are. So you'll notice this is true. Most people make instant judgments within the first few moments, based especially on how you look. So if you wear really nice clothing, you will generally have a better relationship with the person you just meet. For example, job interviews. At job interviews, you dress really nicely, you smell nice, you brush your teeth, right? So the clothes make the man. It just means that whatever you wear, that is going to control who you are. And it's very true. If you think about police officers wear a uniform, and then you can immediately identify them as police officers. Or if you work at McDonald's, they wear a uniform at McDonald's, those clothes tell you they work at McDonald's. So you already have an idea about who they are because of the clothes. So the clothes make the man. Last one I'll tell you about. Beauty is only skin deep. So this is quite literal, but it is an idiom. Beauty is only skin deep. That just means that how beautiful someone is only as deep as your skin. So that actually means that the beauty is just how you look and it's nothing else. So it is true. People are very superficial, fortunately or unfortunately. Physical attractiveness is a very important thing in life. So when people are so superficial, they only look at beauty. Beauty is only skin deep. So it doesn't tell you how good or bad the person is because you're only talking about physical beauty. So beauty is only skin deep. Superficial is a good adjective. Superficial just means, and a lot of you already know, it just means you focus on shallow things. So you look at the appearance as an example. Okay, let's talk a bit about any questions please ask, but let's talk a bit about objects. So we described people, let's describe objects. Okay, so describing objects can happen in some English exams, such as the IELTS exam. In the IELTS exam for speaking part 2, and also writing task 1, academic, it is very common where you may need to describe objects. So when you look at an object, horrible 3D drawing, you have to be able to understand what things are. So this is the length, this is the width, this is the height. So you just have to know some of this language. Length, width, height. Length, width, height. So beauty is skin deep is negative. It's not really negative, it's just a fact or a saying. Beauty is only skin deep. It can be negative depending on the situation that you use it. So for example, if your friend is dating a supermodel and then your friend says, oh, but she's really shallow, she only cares about money, then you might say, well, beauty's only skin deep. Then in that situation, it's negative. However, in many other situations, it's just neutral. It's just a fact. If you only focus, or mostly focus on someone's physical appearance, then you will miss the more important aspects of life. So it's more neutral than anything else. Good question. So we have length, width, and height. You have to know these words, right? You can say how long it is. So these are all nouns, right? How wide it is, and how tall or high it is. So these are all adjectives, and these are all nouns. Length, width, height, those are the nouns. The adjectives are long, wide, and high or tall. So you need to have this language sometimes when you want to describe something. So if you have any item, you should be able to describe it. So some words that you always use, you might use the word thing. Thing is a really low-level word. It is correct. However, if you're talking about some sort of thing, you can use the word item or object. If it's something you own, it is a possession. Make sure that you know this language. It does come up quite often. It could be a belonging. So if it's something you own again, it's called a belonging. So make sure that you know this language as well. So if you're going to describe any objects, obviously you may need to describe, as an example, how long it is. So you're going to have to know the numbers. I won't talk to you about the numbers. But as an example, you should be able to describe, is it in centimeters? Is it in meters? Now, what we have here is something called the metric system. In other parts of the world, like the US, they don't use the metric system. So you can also use something like feet or inches, right? Or yards or miles. So you can also use the imperial system. Now, I'll tell you something funny. In Canada, we actually use both. So in Canada, for height, as an example, we actually use the imperial system. But for how long something is, we use the metric system. So we use kilometers, but then when we talked about how tall people are, we actually use the imperial system. We use feet and inches. We don't use centimeters. So it's very strange in Canada. But you have to know this language, because if you're describing an object and you're saying, oh, yeah, it's really long, well, how long is it? It's really tall. Well, how tall is it? You have to be able to put a number in front, and then you can talk about this. Now, if you're talking about shapes, I'm going to tell you how to describe certain shapes. So this is a circle, and the adjective would be circular. Right? It's a circle as a noun. So this is a very common one. Now, if it's a rectangle, that is the noun. If it's the adjective, it's going to be rectangular. If it's this thing, then it's a cylinder. And actually, it's very funny about cylinders, because you actually have these in your car. If you open up the hood of your car, the front part of your car, and you look at the engine, they actually have cylinders. They call them cylinders. So that's the noun. The adjective is cylindrical. The last one I'll talk about is this. So it's a square. Both the noun and the adjective are both square. So these are some of the more basic shapes that you're going to see, and so you should be able to describe it by either using adjectives or nouns. My recommendation is if you can't remember the adjective, they usually end the ler and cul, so it may be difficult to remember. I suggest that you just use the noun. That would be easier. Okay. When you're talking about the appearance, probably the last thing that's most important, I'm going to erase some of this stuff, is going to come down to colors. Colors are extremely critical, vital, essential, imperative, and paramount that you know. So when you want to learn about colors, the first thing you'll notice is that you may know the colors in the rainbow. If you want to score a better mark, you just add another adjective in front. So usually I would suggest that you use the word pale. Pale just means light. So you can also say pale red, light red. If it's really dark, you can call it a deep red. So that's the best way to score better on an English exam, is to add one of these adjectives in front. The other thing that you need to do then is you should learn, if you really want to score well, is you can learn some other hues. Now, if you're a Vietnamese student, you may look at this and look, it's a hui. No, it's not a hui. It's a hue. A hue just means a different shade. It's a different shade of that color. So there are lighter reds and deeper reds, and they all have different names. So I'll just give you an example. What you should do is, you can go on the internet, you can do a search on some colors, and then you'll find them. So for red, there's a color called crimson or scarlet, as an example. These are two colors of red. Now, if you get a question about describing something on the exam, and you say, yeah, it's a crimson red, or it's a crimson whatever, or it's a scarlet whatever, you will score extremely well on the exam, because these words are quite difficult. If you have a if you have a blue, you might have a cyan, as an example. There might be a cyan blue. If you have a purple, you might have a magenta. If you have green, you might have an emerald. So all colors have more advanced forms. You will score amazingly high in the exam if you're able to produce this language. The issue is that, well, how many colors are there? There's thousands. So that's a big problem. Even for me, I don't even know half of them. There's like, if you ever go to a paint store, as an example, they literally have thousands of colors. These are what those colors are. It's like a little bit deeper, a little bit deeper, and a little bit deeper, a little bit lighter, a little bit lighter. All the different hues and shades of these colors, these are real colors though. So if you have to describe something, try to think of a more complicated word for that basic color, and you'll score a lot higher. Once again, I can't go through them all. I don't even know them all. There's so many. You should just go on the internet, search for it, and then you'll be able to do quite well. Okay, so it's already been quite a bit of time. Any last minute questions? Okay, well, I could go on forever about describing objects and appearances. We can talk about maybe faces another time, or going into a deeper analysis of the colors. However, for now, I guess that's quite a bit of information. Any questions, please let me know. Let me know what you want the next topic to be. But if not, some of the students asked me to leave it up. If not, then I guess we'll be done for tonight. I will see you all next week, and it was good to see you. So, bye for now. See you next time.